Are you dealing with any nagging knee pain, or maybe you just suffered a knee injury? Either way, in this video, we're going to be going over 3 super effective knee pain relief exercises to reduce inflammation, reduce discomfort, get you your mobility back, and get you back to doing what you love. All right, let's get into it. Hey guys, Neil Toussaint with TrickStrong.com, and as we said, we're going to be going over 3 of my top knee pain relief exercises that I use with my clients to reduce inflammation. A lot of people don't know that you can actually reduce inflammation with movement, and that might be the most beneficial and primary way that you should be doing that. In the past, but the community has been really on this RICE method, which stood for rest, ice, compression, elevation. That has been shown in the literature to be less effective than incorporating movement into your rehab. Even early rehab. I mean, I've had people day 0 walking after spinal surgery, for example. So if you've just injured your knee, don't worry. It's not about just sitting and resting and waiting. You actually have some actionable steps to do in order to get the best out of your recovery and get back to doing what you love. So that is the purpose of this video, and we're gonna go into those exercises right now. So we just stated that movement can reduce inflammation, right? So how is it doing that? Typically with movement, there's gonna be muscle contraction, and that muscle contraction can really help pump fluid in or out of an area. Also, the joint gapping, opening and closing, for example, will help produce synovial fluid or joint lubrication to help things move a lot more smoothly. But of course, if you do too much, that can increase inflammation, especially after an injury. So these exercises are designed to be low load, but they're also designed to move the joint through its full range of motion, full pain-free range of motion, because if we're running into that pain, again, we might be increasing our inflammation. So I just want to say that to really highlight the level of intensity that you should be doing these exercises at. It's gonna be a low to moderate intensity, and it's gonna be for a longer duration, and that's gonna be a really good type of parameters that we're going to be able to use for these exercises. So the first one we want to talk about is the TKE, and there's a couple ways to do this. I'm going to show you both of them right now. TKE stands for terminal knee extension, and we are going to use a band for that. So I have a lighter band. I mean, it's still pretty heavy, so we're not going to be using really TheraBands for this unless you cannot tolerate any load. But if you can tolerate some load, if you're able to walk, then I would use a thicker band like this. This is a pull-up assist band. I really like the Serious Steel bands, so you can look them up as well. But we're gonna go right here to an immovable object, and we're just gonna loop the band around. So we're just gonna loop it in. And now we have one point of tension here. So let's say this is the affected knee. We're gonna put it right behind the knee, not above or below, but just right in the pit there. And then I like to have this knee behind the other one, and we're just straightening against that resistance. So we're squeezing that quad, and we're letting it bend, we're controlling that bend, and then we're really squeezing against the band to extend. Obviously, if getting to that terminal extension is bothering you, do as much as you can, trying to lightly do it, and then over time you can really start putting more force and really locking that knee out. And I love this for reps, for just pumping that fluid out. I mean, you could even look at my knee and imagine that it's pumping the fluid out of there, right? So that is one way to do it, but my favorite way to do it is the alternating TKE. So it becomes more of like a backwards treadmill walking almost, or just a really convenient way to get that blood flow through both legs, especially if you need it in both knees. And it's always good to do maintenance as you're doing some of these exercises anyway. So you're gonna put it right behind that crease on both sides. And as you can see, this is a much stronger pull-up assist band, probably rated to over 100 pounds. And then, so I'm gonna just really lean back and then power through using my quads. So that's gonna be for the more advanced, maybe you have nagging knee pain versus something that just happened. So maybe it's a more chronic issue, or maybe you're further along in your rehab process and you wanna really challenge it, then use a heavier band. Of course, you could do the same thing with the lighter band, but I wanted to show you guys both possibilities here. And I like to incorporate the arms, helps me get into a flow, and then I would do that for about 2 minutes straight. For exercise number 2, we're gonna be using knee cars for this. So there's a couple of ways to do it, just like our first exercise, so I'm gonna show you right now. The easiest way to do it is gonna be from like a hamstring curl, basically. So you're gonna be touching the wall here, and you're going to do a hamstring curl, body weight. But here's where things get interesting. So we want to incorporate rotation with that. That's going to help improve the joint quality, improve pain and inflammation, because we're using movement to help lubricate the joint in all directions and to get blood flow in all directions as well. So we're going to be bending right here, and then we're only going to be doing rotation at the top position. So notice I'm going to turn my tibia, so I'm rotating my heel out. And I'm gonna keep that bend, then I'm gonna go the other way and back down. So hopefully you guys are able to see that each time I come into a bend, I'm changing the rotation. If this is too complicated or this is hard to feel, you can always learn how to do it in a seated position like we're showing right now on screen. And then once you're ready, you can come back to this hamstring version where you're doing a curl with the tibial rotation. Doing that for reps, a higher amount of reps, so we're gonna use more volume but less intensity to start. And then as you get better, as your rehab progresses, as your inflammation goes down, maybe you can do higher intensity reps with lower volume of sets, for example. For you more advanced people, a good way to progress it would be to just use a simple loop band like this. You're going to step on the band on both sides. So let's say I'm doing it with my left. So I'm actually going to step onto the band with my right. So I hope you see that here, this orientation here, where it's on the ankle on one side and on the bottom of the foot on the other. That allows me to anchor it so that I can do this resisted. And it is not hip rotation, it is knee rotation. So again, if you're losing that, then do that seated drill, which would still help with the pain and inflammation, and then progress through to doing it body weight standing, and then finally banded in a standing position. This next exercise, exercise number 3, is going to be knee gapping. We're gonna use a towel to help open up the knee joint and gap it so that we can get that blood flow in and out of that joint, and we can reduce pain and inflammation. So I'm gonna use a simple towel roll here. It could be not that big of a towel. And you're just gonna roll it up. Let's start with this. You don't want such a huge towel roll, right? So you want something like a small to medium like this. And then you're just gonna sit against the wall, supported, and you're gonna put that right in the pit of your knee. And the way you're doing that is by really getting up in there before closing it. Because what I see happen a lot of times is that you just casually put it in, and by the time you go to tighten, you can see that it's actually a lot lower on my knee. The idea is that it's right in that pit, right up against there, so that it's gonna actually open and gap the joint. So really get that in there, hold it, and then from here, make sure it's gonna stay there. And then what I like to do is get, if you can tolerate this, of course. For some, this might be enough, just hanging out here. But what I like to do to get that pump effect is to clasp my hands like this. I'm gonna put it low on my forearm, on my shin, sorry. And then I'm going to hold that for about 5 seconds, getting that max knee bend. And then you relax and do it again. So you're just doing this for reps. And sometimes it might fall a little bit as you're going, or maybe you want a little bit more strong gapping feeling. So then you would just roll that towel all the way, or get a bigger towel, put it right back in there, and then go for another hold of about 5 seconds or so. Of course, I don't want to leave my more advanced people with knee pain or inflammation hanging. So if you can tolerate it, you're gonna get a box, chair, anything you could prop your leg up on, and you could do this from a lunge type of position. So you're gonna prop that leg up nice and high. You're gonna get that towel roll, deep into the crease like we spoke about before, and then you're just really trying to put more pressure onto that joint. And now, because I'm on my feet, I can even rock. So I almost like this a little bit more for that pump effect, because we're coming in and out. And that tends to feel a little bit nicer on the knees sometimes than strict holds for long periods of time. So if static holds are bothering you, always incorporate movement, and that might help you out. A bonus honorable mention for this video is definitely biking. So if you have access to a stationary bike or even a pedal bike, I would highly recommend using that, because again, you're getting that pump effect. You're doing a lot of repetitions, but it's low stress to the joint, it's low load, and that typically helps very much with pain and inflammation. So try that out. Try some walking as well. That could be a nice day in the park. You could just walk around. As long as things aren't hurting you, they're likely going to be helping you when it comes to movement. So as you now know, joint pain and inflammation can be reduced with movement. And in regards to the knee, we went over the terminal knee extensions, we went over the knee cars, we went over knee gapping techniques, and then lastly, we talked about some biking. So those are some really, really solid options for you to work on this at home or in the gym or wherever you're training, and progressively load it over time. Because if that pain and inflammation is getting in the way of you doing higher level movements, or even worse, is you're pushing through it and probably compensating in other areas, then that's going to lead to a lot of issues. So if you're ready to overcome your knee pain and level up your training, head over to TrickStrong.com and download the TrickStrong RX app. As a physical therapist and movement artist myself, I've designed programs for you to get from rehab to peak performance. So whether you're trying to build strength, improve performance, or everything in between, we've got you covered. If you enjoyed this video, definitely hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so that you don't miss a new video. Train hard, stay safe, and see you soon for the next one.